A billionaire mocked a janitor at the piano. 5 minutes later, she regretted everything. Michael Carter had lived 52 years, most of them defined by hard work and quiet endurance. His broad shoulders carried more than just the weight of mop buckets and cleaning supplies. They bore decades of sacrifice. Once, long ago, he had been a gifted pianist. A young man with dreams of filling concert halls, of coaxing symphonies out of ivory keys. But life had demanded something different. His father's illness, the bills that piled up, the mouths at home that needed feeding. Each responsibility had pulled him further from that shining dream. By the time he traded sheet music for a janitor's uniform, the boy at the piano seemed like another person entirely, buried beneath time and necessity. Now, Michael's days were spent polishing marble floors and emptying trash bins in the Grand Meridian Hotel, one of the most luxurious buildings in the city. He moved quietly through the lobby, his cart rattling faintly with bottles of polish and rags, careful never to intrude upon the wealthy guests who drifted past him as if he were invisible. The hotel's atrium soared upward, sunlight pouring in through glass panels so wide they seemed to drink the sky. Each midday, the lobby glowed with a brilliance that made the gold fixtures sparkle and the marble gleam. In the corner, almost like an ornament rather than an instrument, stood the grand piano. Its surface shone black as obsidian, reflecting every beam of light like liquid glass. For years, Michael had passed by that piano in silence, eyes lowered, hands gripping the mop handle a little tighter. To him it was both beautiful and cruel, a reminder of what could have been, and what would never be. But on this day, something tugged at him. As he wheeled his cart across the polished floor, his gaze fell on the piano. The lobby was quieter than usual, the crowd of guests thinned. For the first time in years, no one was watching closely. Michael slowed his steps. His breath caught in his throat, the sound of the rolling cart echoing against the high ceilings. He stopped just a few feet away. The piano seemed to call to him. Its presence was magnetic, pulling memories from the deepest parts of him. Memories of sweaty palms before a recital, of his mother's proud smile when he finished a piece, of nights when he played until his fingers ached because the music gave him freedom. Almost without realizing it, he reached out. His hand, roughened from years of scrubbing and lifting, hovered above the keys. He hesitated, his pulse quickening. Then his fingers brushed lightly against the cool ivory. A single note chimed out, soft and pure, ringing across the lobby like a whisper from the past. Michael froze. The sound lingered in the air, fragile and haunting. He closed his eyes, and for a moment he was 19 again, sitting in the small church where he had first fallen in love with the piano. He could almost smell the faint polish of the wood, hear the faint hum of an audience waiting for him to begin. His hand trembled. He knew he shouldn't linger. The uniform on his back marked him as someone who had no right to touch such an instrument in this place. Yet the urge was overwhelming, as if all the years of silence demanded to be broken. He pressed another key, this time holding it a little longer. The sound was fuller, warmer, filling the edges of the room with a kind of intimacy the grand lobby rarely knew. The sunlight streamed through the glass, landing directly on the piano as though blessing his stolen moment. Michael's lips curved into the faintest smile. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel, not just the keys beneath his fingers, but the weight of his old dream stirring awake inside him. And somewhere deep in his chest, he wondered, what if the music had never left him? The fragile notes Michael coaxed from the grand piano barely had time to breathe, before the sharp clack of heels echoed across the marble floor. The sound cut through the quiet like a blade, precise and deliberate. He drew his hand back instantly as if caught stealing something precious. His chest tightened. From the sweeping staircase descended Isabella Drake. She was the sort of woman whose presence consumed every corner of a room. Late 30s, her beauty was sculpted and polished like the gems she wore on her wrists and ears. Her silk dress shimmered like liquid gold, clinging to her frame in a way that declared wealth without needing words. Behind her trailed 3 companions, men in tailored suits, women with diamonds flashing at their throats. They carried themselves with the careless arrogance of those who had never known hunger, exhaustion, or fear. Michael straightened, his hand falling stiffly to his side, his gaze dropping to the polished floor. He felt his old habit rising, shrink, disappear, let them pass. Yet the piano betrayed him. Its last note still lingered faintly in the air, like smoke refusing to dissipate. Isabella's lips curled into a smile, not warm but sharp like the glint of glass in sunlight. She slowed her steps, her eyes narrowing on him, then the piano, then back to him again. "Well," she said, her voice smooth as velvet and twice as dangerous. "What do we have here?" Michael's throat constricted. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The others fanned out behind her, their laughter bubbling before she had even spoken the punchline. "A janitor?" Isabella tilted her head, her earrings catching the sunlight. Her tone dripped with mocking amusement. "Don't tell me you think you can play this instrument?" Her words sliced deeper than she realized, or perhaps she knew exactly how deep they cut. The laughter of her friends burst into the air, loud, careless, cruel. Each chuckle bounced off the marble walls, amplifying the humiliation that wrapped around Michael like a shroud. His cheeks burned hot, though he kept his eyes fixed on the floor. Inside him, a storm stirred. He had endured decades of being unseen, dismissed, overlooked. But there was something about her tone, condescending, sharp with the certainty of superiority, that pierced through his practiced silence. Isabella wasn't finished. She leaned slightly on the piano, tapping one lacquered nail against its glossy surface. "Tell you what," she said, her smile widening into a theatrical grin. Her voice lifted so everyone in the lobby could hear. "Play this piano and I'll give you $1 billion. Ha, can you imagine? The lobby filled with laughter, louder this time, her entourage practically doubling over at the absurdity of it. A janitor playing like a master. Impossible. The idea was entertainment for them, a game played at his expense. Michael's chest rose and fell unevenly. The sting was sharp, almost physical. He clenched his hands at his sides, the faint scent of disinfectant and polish clinging to his fingers, reminding him of his place. The uniform he wore screamed worker, not artist. And yet beneath the shame, another force stirred, quiet but insistent. He remembered the weight of his mother's hand on his shoulder after his first recital, the way his daughter once clapped when he played her lullabies. The countless nights he had played not for applause but for survival, for sanity, because music was the only thing that ever made sense. His gaze lifted, just slightly, meeting Isabella's eyes for the briefest moment. He saw the cruelty hiding behind her elegance, the gleam of superiority she wielded like a weapon. For a moment, he wanted to walk away, to spare himself further ridicule, to retreat into the shadows where he had always existed. But the fire inside him whispered otherwise. The piano keys were right there, gleaming under the flood of sunlight. He could almost feel their weight beneath his fingers, almost hear the music that still lived in his bones. Michael's breath quickened. His heart pounded against his ribs like a drum calling him to battle. Shame pressed down on him like a heavy hand. But passion pushed back, steady and strong. He hesitated, caught between humiliation and the faint, dangerous spark of defiance. And in that hesitation, the lobby held its breath. The air in the Grand Meridian Hotel shifted subtly, as if the sunlight itself had paused to watch. Guests strolling through the lobby slowed mid-step, their conversations faltering into murmurs as curiosity pulled them toward the unfolding scene. Some leaned against the marble balustrades, others stopped at the check-in desks, their eyes darting between the imposing billionaire and the unassuming janitor. The contrast could not have been starker. Isabella Drake, gleaming in her designer dress, radiated confidence and cruel anticipation, while Michael Carter, in his neat but worn uniform, seemed almost invisible until the piano drew him forward. He felt the weight of every gaze press against his shoulders. His fingers trembled, not with fear of the crowd, but with the memory of a life he had tried to forget. His mother's voice whispered through his mind, as vivid as if she were beside him. "Your music is your voice. Never let them silence it." The memory burned warmth into his chest, a gentle reminder that talent and passion could not be buried, no matter how many years of compromise had passed. Michael inhaled slowly, the crisp scent of polished marble and lemon cleaner filling his lungs, mingling with the faint echo of sunlight bouncing off the piano's lacquered surface. He wiped his sweaty palms against his uniform one more time, then straightened his back and approached the bench with the precision of a man stepping onto a stage he had never truly left. Each step was measured, his polished shoes barely making a sound against the gleaming floor. Yet the echo of his presence seemed to amplify the tension around him. Isabella, leaning slightly on the piano, whispered to her entourage with a hushed chuckle that carried just enough to reach Michael. "This will be entertaining," she said, eyes glittering with expectation. Her friends nodded, some smirking, some exchanging amused glances, all waiting for the inevitable humiliation they had anticipated. The lobby seemed to hum with anticipation, the gentle clink of glasses from the nearby cafe fading into silence, replaced by the near-sacred quiet of a room holding its collective breath. Michael settled onto the bench, feeling the cool wood under his palms, the keys beneath his fingers. The piano seemed alive, as if aware of the moment and the challenge, as if it had been waiting decades for his return. He flexed his fingers, recalling the hours of practice long past, the evenings spent pressing out melodies that had once brought joy to others and solace to himself. The tremor in his hands lingered for only a moment before resolve began to take its place. A soft murmur ran through the crowd as hotel guests edged closer, intrigued not by wealth or power, but by the quiet defiance of a man about to reclaim a part of himself. A young couple paused mid-laugh, their forks hovering over half-eaten desserts, captivated. An elderly guest adjusted her spectacles, leaning forward in anticipation, as if sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Even the chandeliers seemed to shimmer a little brighter, casting fractured light across the polished marble and Michael's composed figure. Michael's gaze met Isabella's for a fleeting second. Her smirk was unwavering, almost predatory, her posture radiating certainty that he would fail, but he did not flinch. In that brief connection, a silent battle played out, her arrogance against his resilience, her expectation against his memory of music, his family, and the unspoken promise he had made to himself years ago, never to allow silence to claim him again. The lobby grew still, taut with suspense. The only sounds were the faint rustle of silk dresses, the shifting of shoes against marble, and the occasional clearing of a throat. Michael's breath evened out, each inhale drawing him deeper into a calm focus. The sunlight glinted off the piano's edge, illuminating the surface as if spotlighting a stage meant just for him. Then, with a subtle intake of breath and a small, almost imperceptible shift in posture, Michael placed his fingers lightly upon the keys. The first note hovered in the air, soft, deliberate, and trembling slightly, carrying with it the weight of expectation, history, and latent brilliance. The lobby leaned in as one, waiting, listening, suspended in a moment pregnant with possibility. Every eye, every whisper, every subtle movement of the crowd held its collective gaze upon him. Michael Carter, the janitor, was about to speak through the only language he had ever truly mastered, the music that lived in his soul. Michael took a steadying breath, the lingering scent of polish and sunlight mixing into something almost sacred. He lowered his fingers onto the keys, hesitant for a heartbeat, and then pressed a single note. It was soft at first, barely disturbing the polished marble, but it carried the unmistakable weight of intent. The lobby, previously buzzing with whispers and curiosity, went silent as if the air itself were holding its breath. The note blossomed into a melody, tentative but full of promise. Michael's fingers began to move with a rhythm that felt both familiar and new, like returning to a place he had once called home. Each key he pressed sang with clarity, his touch coaxing the piano to speak his story. The long nights spent working to keep a roof over his family's head, the dreams he had abandoned, and the resilience that had quietly shaped his soul. Gradually, his confidence grew. The soft melody swelled into a powerful, soulful anthem that filled every corner of the lobby. The polished floors seemed to vibrate with the sound, the sunlight refracting against chandeliers to scatter prisms across the room, bathing Michael in golden light. He was no longer merely a janitor standing before a grand piano. He was a conduit for decades of unspoken emotion. Guests froze in astonishment. A waiter paused mid-step, tray in hand, his eyes wide. The clinking of cutlery ceased. Conversations dissolved into awestruck silence. The music captured everyone, transcending wealth, status, and the petty hierarchies that defined the hotel. Even the soft hum of the air conditioning seemed to harmonize with Michael's playing. Isabella Drake's smile, once so sharp and mocking, faltered. She leaned slightly forward, the laughter that had accompanied her every step now extinguished. Her eyes widened, the carefully constructed mask of superiority cracking as the music reached her ears and settled deep within her chest. For the first time, she could not control the narrative. She was merely a spectator, powerless against the artistry before her. Michael closed his eyes, surrendering completely to the music. His body swayed gently with the rhythm, shoulders relaxed, head dipping slightly as his hands danced over the keys. Every note he struck carried a mixture of dignity, pain, triumph, and passion, each chord a testament to the years of quiet endurance that had led him here. The lobby seemed to vibrate with the sheer force of his emotion, each echo a silent reminder that true talent and courage cannot be contained. The melody soared, intertwining classical precision with raw human feeling. Each passage told a story. The innocence of youth, the weight of responsibility, the sting of humiliation, and the quiet power of resilience. Guests watched, captivated as the music seemed to lift the very air, creating a bubble of reverence around Michael and the piano. Some clasped their hands over their mouths, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Others wiped at their eyes, moved unexpectedly by the honesty emanating from the man who had been dismissed as invisible. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the music tapered. Michael's fingers lingered on the final chord, holding it, stretching it, until it vibrated through the floor and into the hearts of everyone present. The note lingered like a heartbeat echoing in silence, refusing to be forgotten. The grand lobby, filled moments ago with arrogance, curiosity, and whispered judgment, now trembled in awestruck quiet. Isabella's eyes darted around the room, meeting those of her entourage, searching for a lifeline, a smirk of reassurance but found none. Their own faces mirrored shock, disbelief, and an unspoken acknowledgement that the joke, the mockery, had completely backfired. For once, her wealth and status meant nothing against the unassuming man before her, whose talent demanded recognition and respect. Michael lifted his hands slowly from the keys and opened his eyes. The lobby remained silent, the only sound the soft hum of electricity and the distant clatter of a dropped glass somewhere behind him. Every gaze was fixed on him, heavy with admiration, surprise, and a strange reverence, and in that quiet, tense pause, the question hung in the air like an unfinished chord. How would Isabella respond now that her cruelty had been silenced and her mockery turned upon herself? The final chord quivered in the air for a heartbeat longer than it should have, then faded into a silence so profound it felt almost sacred. And then, like a dam breaking, the lobby erupted. Applause thundered through the space, a mix of shock, admiration, and pure delight. Some guests leapt to their feet, clapping and cheering with unrestrained awe. Others leaned against the marble railings, whispering to one another with wide eyes. "That janitor. He plays like a master," one voice murmured, barely above a breath. Yet it carried the weight of disbelief and newfound respect. Michael Carter remained seated for a moment, his hands resting lightly on his knees, the echo of the piano still resonating in his chest. He allowed himself a fleeting glance around the room. Faces that had previously ignored him now shone with genuine wonder. Children stared, adults smiled, and even the bellhops and waiters who had stopped mid-step looked at him with a mix of astonishment and quiet reverence. Isabella Drake's entourage fidgeted awkwardly behind her. Her closest friends, who had moments before been laughing and smirking, now exchanged nervous glances. The confident, teasing energy that had enveloped them like armor seemed to evaporate in the wake of Michael's performance. Their whispered conversations faltered, replaced by hesitant murmurs. The laughter that had once rung like silver bells was gone, leaving a hollow emptiness that only Michael's music could have filled. Isabella herself remained rooted in place. Her sharp, mocking smile had vanished, replaced by a tight line of tension across her face. Her cheeks flushed, the delicate blush of embarrassment spreading down her neck. Her eyes darted to the guests around her, seeking some support, some validation that this was all a joke. But no one met her gaze with anything but awe and respect for the man who had just silenced the room. Her confidence, the armor she had worn so effortlessly, was cracking, and she felt the unusual bitter taste of humiliation settle in her mouth. Michael finally rose from the piano bench, bowing slightly, humbly acknowledging the applause without a word. There was no flourish, no need for recognition beyond the music itself. The sounds of clapping followed him as he stepped away, each footfall echoing lightly on the marble floor. He returned to his cleaning cart with the same quiet dignity he had carried all his life, arranging the supplies with meticulous care, as if nothing extraordinary had just occurred. The janitor uniform he wore, modest and plain, now seemed imbued with the quiet power of a man who had reclaimed a piece of himself, long thought lost. The applause continued, swelling and then fading in waves, carrying admiration across the room, touching each guest like a current of revelation. Whispers rose and fell. "Did you hear that? He's incredible. I never expected..." Even those who had passed by without noticing Michael before now watched him with fresh eyes. The music, the mastery, and the courage had rewritten their perception, turning what had been invisible into something unforgettable. Isabella stepped back, her high heels clicking against the marble in hesitation. Her friends shifted nervously beside her, a silent acknowledgement that she had miscalculated entirely. Pride warred with embarrassment in her chest. Every instinct urged her to cling to her superiority, to reclaim her image as untouchable and elegant. Yet deep inside, an uncomfortable truth pressed against her carefully constructed persona. She had underestimated him. She had mocked the wrong person. Michael, pushing the cart slowly toward the exit, did not glance back. He did not gloat, nor did he pause for accolades. His focus was quiet, internal, a balance of relief, satisfaction, and a gentle rekindling of joy he had once buried beneath years of responsibility. Yet even without looking, he felt the change around him, the subtle shift in the energy of the room, the new awareness that greatness can reside where one least expects it. And in the midst of that lingering applause, the question hovered, taut and unresolved. Will Isabella acknowledge her mistake, admit her arrogance, or retreat behind the fragile shield of pride she had worn for so long? The lobby buzzed with admiration and tension, the outcome still suspended, leaving everyone to wonder, not just about her next move, but about the quiet janitor who had, with nothing more than music and courage, turned mockery into reverence. The hum of the lobby had settled into a calm, almost reverent silence. The applause had faded into murmurs of admiration, but its echo lingered, like a soft resonance in the hearts of everyone present. Isabella Drake stood near the piano, her posture slightly rigid, the elegance that had once been her armor now brittle and exposed. For the first time, she felt the weight of her own arrogance pressing down on her. Her eyes, which had so often commanded attention and respect, now struggled to meet the gazes of those around her. She lowered her head, the golden strands of her hair brushing against her cheek, as if shielding her from the reality she could not deny. In that moment, Isabella understood something money had never taught her. Wealth could buy luxury, power could command attention, but neither could fabricate respect, mastery, or dignity. The man before her, a janitor, had demonstrated a truth that no bank account or designer gown could ever emulate. He had spoken without words, yet his message was clear. True value was measured not by mockery or status, but by the depth of talent, the quiet strength of character, and the courage to claim one's voice against doubt. Her friends glanced nervously at one another, a tension running through their ranks. The air was thick with an unspoken realization. They had all underestimated the janitor. The smugness that had accompanied their arrival now seemed almost comical in retrospect, a fragile illusion shattered by the purity of Michael's music. Isabella swallowed, the taste of humility bitter on her tongue. No clever retort, no sarcasm, no attempt to reclaim her image could erase the truth she had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Michael returned to his work with a quiet steadiness. The mop glided across the marble floors, the rhythm almost meditative, and the scent of polish mingled with the lingering traces of music, as though the notes themselves had left a subtle fragrance behind. He did not boast, did not revel in the admiration, nor did he glance back at Isabella. There was no need. The respect in the eyes of the guests, the acknowledgement of his skill and dignity was reward enough. Each careful sweep of the mop, each organized cart, felt lighter now, infused with a renewed sense of purpose. As he worked, Michael's thoughts wandered to the journey that had led him here. Years of sacrifice, countless nights of unfulfilled dreams, and the quiet resilience that had carried him through life's hardships. His hands, once trembling with hesitation, now moved with calm precision. Every gesture, every motion was a testament not just to survival, but to the enduring power of passion, humility, and integrity. He understood more clearly than ever that true fulfillment was not measured by applause, money, or recognition, but by the way one lived, the gifts one shared, and the dignity with which one faced the world. Guests began to resume their activities, yet many lingered in quiet reflection. They had witnessed a lesson, one that transcended the luxury and hierarchy of the hotel. The whispers that had once mocked now spoke of admiration. Children stared at Michael with wide eyes, perhaps seeing a hero not in wealth or fame, but in someone who had reclaimed his voice and, in doing so, reminded everyone of what truly matters. Isabella watched him from a distance. Her posture softened, her gaze thoughtful. She could find no words to recover her previous arrogance. The billion-dollar bet, the mockery, the laughter, it all seemed hollow now. In the face of real talent and integrity, all her wealth and influence felt insignificant. She had been schooled in a way no money could ever teach. And Michael, serene and undisturbed, continued his work. The grand piano now silent but still echoing in memory. In the gentle rhythm of his movements, in the modest way he carried himself, he embodied a truth far more valuable than any fortune, that life's richest rewards are earned not through status or mockery, but through character, humility, and the courage to share one's gifts with the world. In that sunlit lobby, amidst the polished marble and the faint scent of polish, a quiet victory had been won, not for wealth or prestige, or recognition, but for dignity, respect, and the enduring power of human spirit.